think you got problems. You ain't got the same kind of problem Philadelphia's got. Big Bet Bennett, did you see what happened after the Grizz humbled the Sixers this weekend because we got an incident in the locker room? Joel Embiid threatened and shoved a columnist. This is like Jeff Calkins versus Jason Williams times 30.
Oh, man. That one held the cake for a long time. It really did. I mean, that one was on like those, like, they would do, I remember there used to be like sports countdown shows and stuff like that, and they would have like the best, like, moments between, best press conference moments and stuff like that. That one was always on there. That one was always on there.
You see John Chaney and John Calipari going back and forth. That's going to be there. That's going to be there every time.
Yep.
But every once in a while, they give you a Jason Williams, Jeff Calkins right there.
Yes, they did.
This is a new one. So it all stems from a recent column by a fellow named Marcus Hayes. He works for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Did you see this column when it was written, when it started this controversy last week?
So here's the thing, is after the game, I tweeted something like, I quote tweeted that story and was like, the Grizz are so bad because it's like, we go in there and beat the crap out of them, and then it just starts blowing up in their locker room. Then I went and read the story, and I was like, ugh.
Yo, how do you write this?
I don't know how you write that.
So Marcus Hayes, a columnist at the Philadelphia Inquirer, and he wrote a column last week because, as you know, Joel Embiid hasn't played at all so far this season, has already announced to the world that he doesn't plan to play in back-to-back. The truth is, and this has been sort of his truth since he entered the NBA, he's got a damaged body. He ain't as healthy as you'd like him to be, as he would like to be. And this has been a big point of contention in Philadelphia. This guy earlier in the year signed a massive contract extension, and here he is once again not being able to do his job. So Marcus Hayes at the Philadelphia Inquirer, he decides he's going to tackle this topic, and he started a column last week this way. I'll just read it to you, and then we'll discuss. Joel Embiid consistently points to the birth of his son, Arthur, as the major inflection point in his basketball career. He often says that he wants to be great, to leave a legacy for the boy named after his little brother, who tragically died in an automobile accident when Embiid was in his first year as a 76er. Well, in order to be great at your job, you first have to show up for work. Embiid has been great at just the opposite. Now, in his 11th season, he consistently has been in poor condition. This poor conditioning apparently seems to have delayed his debut this season. It goes on from there. In fairness to Marcus Hayes, the criticism came pretty swiftly. There's got to be a better way to get into a Joel Embiid column than by mentioning his son and his dead little brother, whom his son is named after. There's got to be a better way to get into this column to make the point you're trying to make. Marcus Hayes, again, to his credit, seemed to realize this at some point and went back in, changed the column, and apologized on social media. But, it's a little bit like, once the toothpaste is out the tube, you ain't putting that back in. It is what it is. So you can change the column, and he should have. But what you initially wrote has already circulated. It's been screen grabbed. That's what Joel Embiid is upset about. Embiid had mentioned this last week in a press conference and said he has done too much for that city and played through too many injuries to be treated this way. He's not choosing not to work. He is not capable of working. And he had mentioned Marcus Hayes by name last week at this press conference, but Marcus Hayes was not in attendance for that. It appears the first time Joel Embiid and Marcus Hayes came face-to-face for the first time after that column was written was in the locker room after the Grizzlies defeated the Sixers on Saturday night. And there was an incident between them, verbal at first, but then, according to the reporting from people in the locker room, eyewitnesses, Joel Embiid did shove, not punch, but did shove the columnist. First things first, obviously you can't put your hands on a reporter. Not in the locker room, not anywhere else. Joel Embiid will be punished for this, and, I'm sure he'll accept it and understand it. But that is an awful column. Mm-hmm. An awful way to start it. A dumb way to start it, an insensitive way to start it. Criticizing a person for not playing basketball by bringing up the tragic death of their younger brother is insane. I don't understand how an editor didn't just go, hey, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Like this, you can make every point you're trying to make without bringing up the dead brother. What? Imagine if I were injured, or more appropriately for my profession, too sick to do my job, which is all anybody is saying about Joel Embiid, by the way. He is more or less too sick or banged up or not in proper condition to do his job. Now imagine if I were too sick, banged up to do my job, and some columnist somewhere, for whatever reason, wrote that I was somehow letting my loved ones down by being too sick or too banged up to do my job. Like, what? Can you imagine me being too sick or injured to do my job, and some columnist writes, because my knees have been surgically repaired too often, or because I'm battling any number of things, that I'm somehow letting down my dead father or dead son? What? Like that's crossing a line.
Yeah, I just don't know what he was thinking.
I don't either.
I really don't.
I mean, I've written columns that I don't like in hindsight, and certainly had lines that I would take back. We've talked about this before as it pertains to a column I wrote about Penny Hardaway this offseason after he fired 4 more assistants, and there's an anonymous letter alleging all these violations, and I just sort of wrote, like, this is exhausting. The chaos never stops. And it'd be one thing if the success on the court was enough to make you not think about or care about the constant negative headlines away from the court. Like, if this were Kansas basketball, we could overlook some stuff. But it's not Kansas basketball. You've been to 2 NCAA tournaments in 6 years. You've won in 1 NCAA tournament game. And I wrote in that column, there's a sentence in there that says, I was wrong. Meaning I, Gary Parrish, was wrong when I said Memphis should fire Tubby Smith and hire Penny Hardaway. And here's the truth. After I wrote it, I wanted to change it. I mean, I could have, but again, the point's the same. What's done is done. Once people have consumed the column, it's there. I can go back and change it, but it won't matter because those were my initial thoughts. Those words, they will live forever somewhere.
Yeah, I got you.
But I wish I wouldn't have done that, right? You know why? Because I don't think I was wrong. I don't actually think I was wrong. That was a moment where I was honestly sitting in an airport and trying to show some. I was trying to acknowledge some points, trying to give a little bit. Like, hey, if one of the things that I know people are going to say about this is you always think you're right, then how about I just say I was wrong? How about I just take that bullet out of your gun, just say it right now? That's what I was trying to do. It came from a good place, but I don't think I was wrong. I just think it hasn't gone well. I think it was a good idea. Firing Tubby Smith and hiring Penny Hardaway, I still to this day believe it was a good idea. And it actually accomplished a lot of the things I said it would accomplish and hoped it would accomplish initially. It's just become exhausting and chaotic. But I don't think I was wrong to suggest this is what Memphis should do. It's just that sometimes in life, all aspects of life, you can make sound decisions, have good ideas, and, sometimes they just don't go the way you want them to go. That is more or less, at least from my perspective, the Penny Hardaway era. As of this moment, a good idea that hasn't gone well. So in that column, I wish I wouldn't have written it the way I wrote it. I wish I would have done that part differently. But it's nothing like this. It'd be like if I just started bringing up Penny Hardaway. Imagine starting a column and 1 NCAA tournament victory in 6 years for Penny Hardaway. He must be letting his grandmother down. What are you talking about? So I don't blame Joel Embiid one bit for being hot. And I like that he didn't just lose his mind and snap. Clearly he'd been sitting on this for a little while, waiting for this opportunity to see this man face to face. Because did you hear what he said? He told the columnist, if you ever mention my dead brother again, I'll handle you and deal with the consequences. I love that. Because what that suggests to me is This isn't all just off the cuff, like he lost his mind. You see people all the time on the For You tab. They just lose their mind in a moment, and it's a fight or a gunshot or whatever. They just pop off. And I guarantee if you could talk to them the next day, they would say, I can't believe I did that. Like the young guy who just murdered his ex-girlfriend at Shelby Farms. Like, I don't know what went into that. I guess we'll find out someday. But I can't imagine he's still sitting here a couple weeks later going like, yeah, I'm glad I did that. I bet you he's like, I just ruined my whole life because I snapped on a Saturday morning. I assume that's how he feels. That's how I would feel. Joel Embiid didn't snap the other night. He said, I've thought about this, and I'm still thinking about it, and I'm telling you. I know that I'm wrong. I know I can't do what I just did. But what I'm telling you is if you do that again, I will handle you, and I'll deal with any of the consequences. If I'm suspended, fined, arrested, if that's the cost, then it's a cost I'm willing to pay, right? That shows you how deep this cut him. This wasn't just, I'm going to lose my mind because I'm emotional. This is something that cut him to his core. I know every single thing Joel Embiid says or does hasn't been the most popular with NBA fans. I just fundamentally don't believe he's somebody who doesn't. This is what people say all the time. He don't want to play. I don't believe he doesn't want to play. I just don't believe basketball players don't want to play basketball. I think he is not in a position for whatever reason to play to the level at which he needs to play right now. Hopefully he'll get there and stay there, but I don't think it's simple as you don't want to play, and it's certainly not as anything of you're letting your dead brother down by not playing. Like, that is some dots that should just never, ever be connected. And I don't blame Joel Embiid for popping off. He'll have to pay a price for it. He was wrong. But sometimes both these things can be true. You're wrong, but I understand. Shouldn't have done that, but I get it. That's what this was. Shouldn't have done that, but I get it.
The Gary Parrish Show, live weekdays at 10 a.m.